I'm meeting with Elif Ekin, and she's a life coach for people going through divorces. At this point, as far as I know, principally women, because they're the ones that are most open to it at this point.
Yes.
But you're not exclusively a life coach for divorced women.
No, no.
So let's talk a little bit about that. We'll talk how you got into it, if you don't mind.
Don't mind
But
at all.
let's just jump in with, what good does it do people to have a divorce coach? And what are the kinds of situations that you see it most helpful for?
In my experience, when you come out of a marriage, long-term marriage or a relationship, you don't really know who you are on your own. And people ask, what do you like to do? What do you like made you laugh? What connects you to yourself again? And they look at you like you're a deer in headlights. Like, I don't know what makes me happy anymore. And it's about working with a coach to help you reconnect with who you are inside, so then you can kind of gather all of your pieces up again and move forward in a more wholesome way.
That's interesting. What do you think causes people to feel that they don't know what makes them happy anymore when they're going through a divorce?
Well, they got lost in their marriage. People try so hard to save a marriage that they're willing to sacrifice themselves for the betterment of keeping the marriage together.
What's in it for them, for trying to keep that bad marriage together?
Structure, a sense of that they didn't fail at the marriage, that they did everything that they could to save the marriage, especially if there's children involved, or if they were a work-at-home mom or stay-at-home mom, where they're like, well, what do I do? Who am I if I'm not staying at home with the kids? How do I connect with who I am? How do I maintain who I am, but also have to take care of the house? It's really hard sometimes to balance everything. So you end up giving over who you are for the betterment of the family.
I just find that interesting, and I'd like to spend a little more time. We don't talk about this in advance, and so I think it unwinds more believably, incredibly, when I don't have somebody that's got their 6 bullet points. But when you mentioned that, I know a woman that had been married for, I think, 30, 40 years. And she said the same thing. She just burst into tears when it was asked, like, what do you like to do? And it was an incident, it wasn't in a life coaching setting, but it was, and no one had asked her that. What makes you happy kind of a thing, and it was just kind of and the longer she thought, the more lost she felt, and she just burst into tears. She's like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So what can you do? How do you approach that situation then? What do you start with? Do you have them walk on hot coals? Do you have them fall backward into your arms? I mean,
we go back in time. What did you do before you were part of this relationship? Did you like to read? Did you like to listen to music? Did you like to dance in the kitchen when you were cooking? What did you do when you were you and not part of a two? And so you actually have to go backwards in time in order to come forwards in time. So when you first get out of that kind of relationship, I usually ask them to really do a lot of clearing and clean your space, clear everything out so that you can see things in a fresh light, and then you can go backwards and start reconnecting to all of the old things. You go, oh my goodness, I forgot I like to listen to music. And you can go back down into your basement and dig out your CDs and put them on, and the little by little that you start pulling the little pieces of yourself back together, then you have a stronger stance to move forward. It's almost like your life is scattered puzzle pieces under the couch, and as you're cleaning up your life, you're finding all of the little pieces and putting them back together.
What would you say to people that say, that sounds like I'm like inducing a midlife crisis?
Well, you're already going through a midlife crisis. You're getting divorced.
But do I really have to go back and listen to my Duran Duran
No.
albums and I'm not, I'm not saying that to mock you. I'm saying, what about people that feel skeptical? I'm sure I'm not the first to ask that. They're like, don't ask me to go back and think about that or what I used to do before I was married. I'm a different person now, irrespective of my marriage. What do you say to people that would say something like that?
And what can you do to figure out what you like to do?
What kind of exercises or what kind of activities do you engage in to help people do that?
I usually just say, what is it like what do you like to do in your spare time when there's absolutely no one around?
Mhm.
Someone says, oh, I like to go and get a cup of coffee at the bookstore. Okay, so you like to read books. What else can you do, to reach a group of people that like to do that? Oh, well, maybe there's a meetup group that likes to read this kind of book. Okay, well, what kind of books do you like to read? I like to read detective books. Is there, what else? It's always this what else question that is asked to dig deeper and deeper to an underlying theme. You have to push people to kind of get them to use their little wheels in their head to think deeper, because they probably haven't thought of that question before. They're simple questions, but it's that constant, what else can you do? What else? How else could you meet someone, like-minded people? What else could you do to foster that interest, to meet new people?
How soon do people start to see beneficial results, or is it really so different for each person that you can't really put a schedule on it?
From 1 month to the next, you just see their light grow. I worked with one woman a few months ago, and she just needed an action list. Call this person about finances, call this person about mortgage, call this, do this, do this. She needed more of an action plan, and that she felt more prepared in where she needed to go in her divorce and in her life, that the next meeting she came, she's like, okay, I'm ready to do what's next, because she had controllable, tangible things she could work with. So it really depends on what the client brings to the table that day and that agenda that they need to work on. And if they actually follow through on the things that they want to accomplish, then they feel a lot stronger to go on to the next layer of stuff that they want to work on.
What do you do that's, say, and let's talk about maybe the overlap. What do you do or don't do that a best friend or a minister or like a therapist does?
I help them discover.
Put yourself in put yourself in context. Then it's like what differentiates or makes you similar to other people that like that maybe divorced people will consider having to utilizing.
Well, I'm not their best friend, so I'm not going to yes them or say that, and say whatever tell them what to do and say, that's a good thing. I'm going to ask them what they think about it or how else they can further that. I'm always going to push them to dig deeper, because it's their life and it's their accountability and their action plan.
Do you find people mistaking your role as a life coach as something else, like a therapist, like a confessor, like a best friend, or something like that? Do you have to kind of set people straight, or do they understand the relationship fairly well?
Well, I think that you can put various hats on when you're in a coaching session, and you can say, as your best friend, if I'm going to put my best friend hat on, I would really like to see you focus all of your attention on one thing so that your light can shine. Okay, now I'm going to take my best friend hat off, and I'm going to put my life coach hat on, and say, how can you do that? What are a few steps that you can take to get from point A to point B?
Do you have kind of like the 7 pillars that you think everybody ought to be doing, or do you help them discover what it is that they ought to be doing, thinking, feeling, believing in order to get themselves right side up again? Do you say, well, it's always important that we do this and then we do that and then we have to ensure this? Or
no, everybody is different. Everybody has different sets of goals and intentions of where they want to be. Everyone's walking a different road, and they need to uncover that for themselves.
Well, I'm thinking about this, and see, this is new to me. You're the first life coach I've ever spoken to for any length of time. But you'll hear about people saying, the 7 stages of grief or something like that. I'm not saying I want it to be, but do you see in your capacity as a life coach people kind of going through the same phases when they come to you? So it's going to be more often than not a divorced woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they all kind of fall into the same age group or if they fall into the same socioeconomic category, or racially or culturally.
From my experience, they're mostly moms, between 35 and 50 years old, that are coming off of a maybe 10 plus marriage with kids, and they were not the main financial provider of the family. So now they're getting divorced and they're feeling overwhelmed with, how do I care for my child? How do I financially take care of them? How do I not go crazy in my divorce because my ex-husband is highly overbearing? They're coming out of relationships where the husband was very, I keep using the overbearing, but very oppressive. So they don't know how to make a decision for themselves or trust their decision. I think there's a lot of inability to trust that their decision is the right decision. There's self-esteem problems. There's health problems. How do I make time for me to be healthy?
Do people in that, and I'll say people instead of just women, but I know that we're speaking primarily about women, but do they discover that they were always kind of weak in their self-esteem and their assertiveness even prior to marriage? Or do they find that they developed that learned helplessness, for lack of a better term? Do people say, I married my husband because I liked somebody who took charge. I liked having somebody make the decisions. I liked kind of have somebody being in control. Unfortunately, either he got off on being in control or I became so, what's the word I'm looking for? So passive, so mild, maybe even lazy, depending upon what part of the spectrum you're on. Or do they say, no, I became this way, or I was always kind of this way and I just allowed it to get worse?
I think that in general, women tend to be less confrontational when there's more children involved because they don't want to create conflict that's going to affect the children. So I feel that sometimes it becomes this passive acceptance that if I just kind of let that go, then it will keep the peace for the rest of the household. So I feel that it becomes an adaptation throughout the relationship rather than I went into someone because I don't have a high self-esteem and I want someone to take care of me. In my situation, I don't feel that I was, that sort of person, but towards the end of my marriage, I literally was balancing plates and spinning plates like, the vaudeville where you're just like, if I can keep all of these plates spinning at the same time, we can get through dinner. And then I can go on with the rest of my duties. Let's just keep everything balanced.
So you don't spin plates anymore, and your clients learn not to spin plates anymore. What do you replace it with?
You replace it with things that build you up, because the more you can develop who you are and your interests and cultivate your needs and be able to express yourself in a way that's respectful to others and your family, then you're setting up a positive example for your children. Because if you're disregarding yourself, your needs, and your wants for your kids, your children and your girls are going to fall into that same cycle. This is an accepted way of what you go through in a marriage. I'm not saying to be selfish and always be me, and it's my time, but you know what? Right now it's Mama's time to have a cup of coffee and read a book, and you can take a half an hour to play on your own because Mama needs to take some time for herself to kind of be quiet.
Okay. Now, coaches, right? You can be a little league coach, you can be a high school coach, you could be a college coach, you could be a professional coach, and at each stage you're doing different things. A professional baseball coach is going to be dealing with elite players, the best in the world, and then at the little league or the high school side, it's kind of in some cases all comers. How many people drop out of divorce coaching because they just aren't up to it?
A lot. It's scary. Usually it's someone will sign on to be a client and we'll go through one session and then we'll start digging. And it's like, oh, okay, I need a couple of months. Please don't call me in for a couple of months.
Do they really need a couple of months, or was that time that if you could tell them without having to have your coaching hat on, would it be like, oh yes, I know what's going on? Or is it right for them to take a couple of months and come back? Is that part of the process, or should they?
It may be part of that growing pain process where once you start actively taking care of you, it becomes something that you're going to have to build into your everyday, and that's overwhelming maybe where they are at that point. If they're in the middle of the divorce and there's so many things going on, and now they have to work on themselves at the same time, maybe balancing those two is too much. So maybe they need to take a couple of months off and say, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z before I can come back and do this. But in the meantime, I'll work on this. But that's what I've noticed, is that they come in for 1 month, one session, and then they realize, wow, this is a lot more work and this is going to take a lot more time. It's not a 2-hour fix. This is going to be a few months to really work through things. I mean, if you were in a relationship for 10 plus years or however long it was, you're going to have to break down all old habits to get to the foundation and the core of who you are, to rebuild yourself in a way that's stronger and healthier.
Now, a coach will do things where a coach has to give encouragement, a coach has to impose discipline, but then a coach also teaches basic skills, right? All right, here's how you pitch the ball, here's how you catch the ball, don't do this, do that, whatever it is. Where's the mix there? Is it a third encouragement, a third discipline, and a third skills, or do you teach mostly skills, or is it mostly just encouragement, albeit of a professional sort? Do you help people? People come in and say, I'm really worried about my finances, and that's what's keeping me from doing anything else in my life. Do you help them budget, or do you refer them to someone that does?
I refer them out to other people, because I have a team of people, most different women who deal with financial, divorce, mortgages, eating habits, dealing with emotional eating. I have a huge network of people that I can refer them out to, and I think that also makes a good coach, because when I was going through my coaching session with my mentor coach, I'd come in and say, oh, I need help with this, and she'd get her phone, okay, call this person and call this person, call this person, and see which one fits. So you have people that have that targeted expertise that you can refer out to. Okay, you go talk to that person, take care of that, and then come back.
Does that get expensive?
It really depends on what information you're looking for, because sometimes a lot of people will do like a free consultation. Maybe it just is a very quick answer. You just don't know until you sit down and talk to an expert. They could just lead you to a website. Go, you know what you need is this worksheet here, which is at this website. You just don't know. But usually, because I've referred them, they're willing to meet with them, talk to them for a good amount of time, and then set up a paid appointment.
All right. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover as far as the kinds of things people ought to consider, how to prepare themselves to do that, whether they would benefit from life coaching in a post-divorce situation that I haven't already covered?
I think we've covered a lot. I think, after you come out of a divorce, you're feeling a bit lost and not knowing which direction to go, that it's helpful to have someone outside of your immediate circle of influence to kind of be present with you, but also be objective and create, a space that's supportive, empathetic, but that can also help guide you, through pointed, directed questions to help you look more internally, rather than going to friends and family that are going to tell you what to do. This is the best thing you can do. And when you're overwhelmed, you're just going to take what other people are telling you to do, rather than sitting down and actively thinking, is that what works for me? Because people are going to tell you their way of doing it, but it might not be what you need.
With the best of intentions.
Yes, of course.
But it may not be the best for you.
Exactly.
Well, for those that would be interested in calling you, let's give your name and contact information here at the end, and we'll also have that on the link too to this video.
You can contact me on my website at mostlyhappyjourney.com. You can give me a call at 801-674-7047, or you can email me at e_ekin@mostlyhappyjourney.com.
Thanks so much.
Oh, you're welcome.